Uber drivers of Reddit, what is your craziest story? I drove for Uber for a while, but ended up quitting because it was a waste of time. Too much sitting around in between pickups for my city. Anyways, one night I was finishing up and left the app on while I was driving home from the busy bar area around 3 AM and got a call. That rarely happened. When I arrived, a few people ran into my car with worried looks on their faces. Apparently, someone had just gotten shot and killed in a bar. The bar owner said this motorcycle gang couldn't bring guns into his establishment. I don't know what happened that led to the murder, but immediately I said, let's get the F out of here. No, they were still waiting for one friend who ran into some bushes and we couldn't leave. 30 seconds later, a dude from the motorcycle gang, standing in the middle of the street, takes out his gun again and shoots at the ground. I assumed as another scare tactic. The friend comes running in luckily, and I peel out with my heart racing. I once got a request for a ride about 10 minutes away and got a phone call from the guy immediately. I answered and he said, I just want to let you know that you'll be getting a 5-star rating for this ride and a generous tip. You won't be picking up me though, you'll be picking up my friend. I said okay and asked what his friend's name was, so he didn't end up paying for some random guy's ride, and he said, well, I'm just a Jewish guy with a lot of black friends. Let me check. I forgot. About 30 seconds later he says, okay, his name is Rob. So despite my gut feelings, I picked up Rob and bring him over to this guy's place where he has us wait for 10 minutes because Jewish guy had to run to the bank. He comes back and gets in the car and they are talking really quietly in the back seat, make an exchange, $800 of cocaine, and then I have to bring this Rob guy back home. I talked to Rob and was cool about it, but told him he can't just be doing cocaine deals in the backseat of cars and that he should get dropped off and get picked up by someone else after. He apologized, bought me some McDonald's, and that was that. TLDR, $800 cocaine deal in my car. Dealer apologizes and buys me McDonald's. I moonlighted as an Uber driver every once in a while. One time, I picked up a guy in the shady area of town at about 1 in the morning. He was a real skinny guy, long unkempt hair, smelled pretty bad. Well, within 15 seconds of getting into my car he falls asleep. Nothing too strange so far. About a minute later, as I look over my right shoulder to check for incoming cars, I notice that the guy's lips are turning blue. I shake him, shout his name. He doesn't wake up. He's not breathing. I booked it to the hospital, which was thankfully about 3 minutes away. Turns out the guy had odd on heroin right before I picked him up. It was a late night that night. Posted this in the Uber driver sub earlier in the week. So that night I picked up a Pax at Fort Myers Beach FL and took her to a gated community off of Main Road about 6 miles away. Went well. Tipped me a couple of bucks as I go back to the gate to get out on the main road. There is a small tan suv right at the stop bar with his flashers on, and I hear someone yelling for help. Rather than get out of my van, I pull up beside him and roll down my window. It is a 20-something, clean cut, clean shaven, young man hunched over, and he yells, help me, I think I'm having a heart attack. So since I'm not a cardiac doctor moonlighting as an Uber driver, I pick up my phone and dial 911. They answer and I tell them there is a driver in distress in the location and he says he is having a heart attack. The driver starts yelling, no, we don't need 911, and that he is feeling better. I started telling the 911 operator what was going on and the kid keeps telling me to hang up, we don't need them. Then about the time I'm describing him and his stuff he takes off. The 911 operator took it pretty seriously though and said they were sending some deputies out to the area. I apologized for wasting their time and they were adamant that I was not in the wrong and they thought the guy was up to something. Topping all of this, I had accepted a ping right before I came up on this, only 5 minutes away, but the whole 911 thing tied up my phone. I called the guy and told him what happened. Turned out he was a guy who had a couple of beers and needed to run to a store and did not want to drive. Very nice guy, short trip, tipped me $2. So I don't know what the kid was up to and what he expected. If someone says they are having a heart attack, the only thing I can do is call 911. Only drove Uber for a summer. Most memorable one was one early evening. Some girl pretty much had me drive to her friend's house and directed me to park in this particular parking spot, and then she told me to turn off my headlights in the car so we can't be seen. Weird thing was, it was still pretty bright out before sunset. Then she just stayed there and stared at this one house. That was when I figured she was stalking someone, and I told her I don't have time for this. Right then she pulled out a wad of cash, $500, and smiled to me, "Now you got the time." Then some big tall ponytail looking guy came out of the house for what I think a cigarette break, and she ran out of my car to him and started screaming and literally start punching the guy. The guy was literally twice his size and looked like Khal Drogo. The guy looked like he tried to reason with her, but she kept hitting him. He then quickly retreated back inside, and she ran back to my car and then told me to take her home. On our drive back, she kept telling me about a handbag and some sandals she's designing commercially. I dropped her off, and she paid her fare on top of the $500 cash she gave me earlier. One day, me and some friends were visiting Miami and we took an Uber from the airport to our Airbnb. Our Uber driver was really interesting. He was from Venezuela, and he had been through a lot to get here. He was telling us about the situation in Venezuela. So, apparently, the economy there is really bad, and he used to work as a marketing head in Coca-Cola, getting a really nice salary. He said that the salary was high in Venezuela, but only converted to about $100 a month here. This was definitely enough to live off of in Venezuela, but definitely not enough to move abroad after the inflation. He said that food and stuff wasn't expensive, but a car, for example, costs the same there as it does here. He decided that due to the instability, he wanted to leave. He started saving for airplane tickets. One way, as he's saving, something goes down and his brother-in-law gets shot or stabbed or something, and so he tells his wife that they have to move to America. His wife, not wanting to leave her family behind, refuses. He tries convincing her, but she can't leave without the family. So, he really has no choice. He divorces his wife and takes a flight to the US. The rest of the Uber ride, he talked about how fortunate he is to live in America and how safe and secure he feels. #GoUSA. I picked up a few guys that were planning on going to a friend's hotel room to drink. They brought along a garbage bag full of Bud Light. On the way there, they decided to go straight to the bar instead. When we got to the bar, they left without the bag full of beers, and when I pointed that out, they told me that I could keep it as a tip. That was 3 weeks ago. I still have a bunch left. One time I had to get an Uber from this guy's house that I had gone out with the night before. I still had my tight black dress on when he picked me up in the morning to take me to work. I'm a 23-year-old girl, and he was probably 40 something with a weird ponytail. We had a typical vague conversation and he dropped me off at my restaurant and I went on my way. Until 2 hours later, when he came back to my restaurant and asked to be sat in my section. It was weird as F. I could go on for days with these, but this one takes the cake. It's not a secret, but just one of many insane experiences. So I picked up a guy in a suit at around 6 PM on Tuesday near Venice, California. He told me to take him downtown, and per usual I asked if he had a preferred route and he said, no, whatever is quickest. We get going, and the usual banter begins. So how long have you been driving for Uber? Me. 1 year or so. It's a great job, he says. Oh cool. Where do you stay at? I answer, in the valley, and he says, oh nice, nice. So, how long have you been driving for Uber? I paused and kind of half smiled, thinking he was effing with me. He wasn't. So I answered verbatim, 1 year or so. It's a great job. He goes, oh cool. Where do you stay at? This repeated 3 more times before I finally answered it differently, saying I just started, it's not for me. And him again replying, oh cool. Where do you stay at? I answered one last time the original way, but then finally, silence. By this point I was on the 10 highway, stuck in rush hour traffic. I look in my rear view, and he is rubbing his head and hair profusely, like someone going through withdrawals. He took his suit jacket off, and looked severely uncomfortable. I dialed 911 on my phone in case SH went down. He then out of nowhere yells in a deeper voice than earlier, F, and I said, sir, is everything alright? and he goes, "Where are we?" I said, "I'm on the 10 headed downtown. Is that still okay?" He goes, "Yes." At this point, by the graces of the universe, we ended up moving pretty quickly through traffic. Then, right before we exit off the 10, 2 miles or so from his apartment, he yelled again, "Where are we?" I said, "Sir, we are almost to your house. Is that still okay?" And he goes, "Yes, that's fine." Once we arrive, I pull up to drop him off, and he gathers his stuff, opens the door and looks back in at me before walking away, and in the most genuine kind way, says, "Have a great night. Watch out for crazy people." Honestly, one of the strangest, creepiest events ever. Subsequently, I bought a stun gun / taser, and luckily so, as this was just the beginning of several crazy incidents. So damn glad I don't drive anymore. Edit. Wow, thanks for all the responses. I think of all the suggestions, drugs seem to be the most reasonable. Dementia is possible, but the way he was sweating and getting increasingly uncomfortable in the backseat make me think it was something artificial kicking in. Please like and subscribe for more Reddit videos.